Back in the project, how can we now share information from our workspace? So from this My Workspace option here. One side note here, the scheduled refresh was not successful as my, computer was turned off when the refresh happened. So this is what it looks like if you don't follow the guidelines I was talking about in the last lecture. However, regarding the sharing, we have to differentiate a bit now because, as I mentioned it, we are in My Workspace now. Later, this will become a bit more advanced when we dive deeper into workspaces. So we are in My Workspace, and if we now go to one of our two reports right here, then we have one quick sharing option, as I would call it. You can find this option if you click onto these three dots right here, and there you have the embed feature. We had a look at this earlier in this module already, and there you have this publish to web option, just to give you one example here. If I click onto this, you see that you have to contact your admin to enable this embedded code creation, because this sharing feature has one flaw, you could say. Because anybody who has the link to this website in the end, because in the end you will just share the report on a website, can access this information. So in the end, as it's written right here, you will publish your report to the web. I won't dive too deep into this feature here because I don't recommend to use it, as it can be a bit dangerous depending on the data you want to share. So I just wanted to show you this option, but we will not explore it any further as it's not my recommendation here. Because in our workspace, we have options to share our workspace. Now it becomes a bit more interesting, right? And you can now either click through all the different parts of the workspace to find these share buttons here, for example in the report here, or you go back to My Workspace here, and there you can immediately see all the sharing options you have. If you hover over the report, for example, you have this sharing symbol. Same thing is not true for our data set, also not here. So you can't share a single data set in Power BI Pro. Based on the things we know about Power BI Pro, this doesn't make a lot of sense actually, because Power BI Pro is about creating or managing visuals in the end. We can share our dashboard, of course, same thing true for this dashboard or this report. So this means we are able to share reports and or dashboards from our workspace here. Let's maybe get started with our report, and let's say we want to share our first Pro report here, so this favorite. If we do that, we can click on to share. And now we get some information that is important to know, because only users with Power BI Pro will have access to this report. So this is very important. You need a Pro account to do this. And now you can give people access to this report. You only need to enter the email addresses here. And this can be email addresses within your organization or also outside your organization. If you enter an email outside of your organization, well, you will get a warning here that you will share data outside of your organization, but it is possible. For the purpose of this course, I will use an email address within the organization. Therefore, I will enter a second email address now. Now you can include a message if you want to, we will skip this. And now you can specify what the recipient should be allowed to do with that access to the report. I don't want to allow that he should share the report. I also don't want to allow him to build new content based on the data set. And I also don't want to send a notification via email. You can, of course, use different settings here. Down there you also get a link to this report, but only people you grant access to can then access the report via using this link. But you don't have to use this link. I'll show you how this works in a few seconds. Besides that, we have this access menu. This menu allows you to see who has access and what kind of access to this report. At the moment, I'm the owner of this report and the only person who has access to it. Now we will change this with this Power BI course user that I just created. So we press share right here. And now I'll switch to the account of this user I just created. So here I am now in this new user. And if I here go to shared with me now, right here, then you can see our first Pro report that I just shared a minute ago with this user. And if I now click onto this report, you can see, well, exactly the report. You cannot see the underlying data set here. This is not possible, but you can click into the report. You can, well, interact with the visuals as you know all these things. Why can we not see the underlying data here? Well, because I didn't allow this in the settings. You remember, if we go back to my account in Power BI Pro, here we are. We can now go back to this report I used and now click onto the sharing options. Then you can see in the access area that this user has read access to the report. If we don't want to grant access anymore, you can just click onto these three dots and now say you want to remove the access. If you do so, Then you can say that you also want to remove any access related to underlying content, so dashboards or datasets. In our case, this wasn't the case as the user didn't have real dataset access. Nevertheless, I always recommend to tick all these boxes to remove really any kind of access this user might have. So let's remove this here and then click here to close this menu. And if we now switch back to our other account, right here, we can still see the report, but let's now refresh the page. Report is still here. So this can sometimes take a few seconds. So let's give this maybe around 10 to 15 seconds now to really update the data on the server. So let's read once again. And now you see you have to request access to the report because I just removed all the access. So I can press OK here. And now I could send a request to get access to the report. As we know, I just removed it. We can just cancel this. And therefore, if we go to share it with me, we can see there is nothing to share right here. So this is how you can share the report. You could do the same thing here with the dashboard if you want to. That would be possible. However, this is not the best way, you could say, to share data. And additionally, it's also not the way to collaborate on projects because, as I said at the beginning of this module, my workspace is actually only our workspace for our information. You can, of course, quickly share a dashboard or report to show it to somebody else, for example, within your organization, but Power BI Pro actually has a different concept when it comes to collaborating and sharing. And for this, we have to explore another concept. And this concept is related to our workspaces and specifically to this create a workspace option down here. So let's explore this create a workspace and these other workspaces we can create as a next step now.